I was mid-presentation to investors when my wife's brother walked in and said, "We're going with my concept instead." The room applauded. I closed my laptop, smiled, and said, "Enjoy the funding." 48 hours later, the CFO was begging at my door, and their faces went pale when they realized I'd already taken everything with me. You ever have one of those days where you wake up thinking, yeah, today's the day everything finally clicks, and by noon you're wondering if you're secretly living in a sitcom written by your worst enemy? That was me. Tuesday morning, caffeinated to the point of prophecy, wearing my one good suit, ready to pitch 3 years of blood, sweat, and PowerPoint slides to a room full of investors who smelled like old money and condescension. I practiced my presentation so many times that even my coffee maker could probably explain the stabilization algorithm. I walked into that glass-walled boardroom feeling like a man about to drop the mic. Instead, I got dropkicked by karma and loafers named Trent. Trent, my wife Amber's younger brother, was the kind of guy who'd walk into a funeral wearing sunglasses and call it networking. He had that frat boy confidence that came from never facing consequences, and a jawline that screamed, "My dad owns the company," which, technically, he did. Richard, my father-in-law, CEO of Brightline Tech and walking embodiment of the old boys club, had built the company from the ground up, only to let his golden boy son run it into the ground at a much higher altitude. Anyway, there I was, clicking through my slides, explaining how our new system could stabilize wireless transmission even in fluctuating environments, when the door swung open like a courtroom drama entrance. Trent strolled in, all swagger and hair gel, holding a latte and zero shame. "Sorry to interrupt, Mason," he said, voice dripping with entitlement. "We've decided to go with my concept instead." Now, when someone says something like that mid-presentation, your brain goes through stages. First is confusion, like maybe you misheard. Then comes anger, followed closely by that delightful cocktail of humiliation and disbelief that makes you wish the floor had a trapdoor. I stood there frozen for a second, staring at him, then at the investors, who were nodding like trained seals at SeaWorld. One of them, a guy with a Rolex that probably had its own zip code, even smiled and clapped. "Brilliant pivot, Trent," he said. Pivot my ass. That man had just hijacked 3 years of my work with the finesse of a raccoon stealing fries. Amber was there, too, sitting near the end of the table, smiling, proud, supportive. But not of me. No, she was beaming at her brother, her eyes glistening like she'd just watched a rom-com ending. That hurt worse than the betrayal itself. She didn't even look guilty, just relieved, like someone who'd finally taken the training wheels off her family's favorite pet project. Me. I closed my laptop slowly, the sound echoing in that sterile boardroom like a mic dropped from hell. Everyone waited for me to blow up or make a scene, but I didn't give them the satisfaction. I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face in half and said, "Enjoy the funding." Then I walked out, calm, cool, and dying inside. I could practically hear Trent whisper to someone, "Guess he's finally done." "Yeah, pal." But not in the way you think. The elevator ride down felt like descending into my own personal reboot episode. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked too calm for what I was feeling. Betrayed, embarrassed, furious. Pick one. I'd spent 3 years giving that company everything, from sleepless nights to missed anniversaries. And for what? To be replaced mid-sentence by a guy whose last big idea was to add emojis to the dashboard for user engagement. When I stepped out into the parking lot, the sun was bright and smug, like it was in on the joke. I sat in my car for a full minute, just gripping the steering wheel, wondering when exactly I'd become the disposable version of myself. People always talk about betrayal like it's a stab in the back. But honestly, it's more like being pickpocketed. You don't notice what's missing until you reach for it, your dignity, your respect, your wife's loyalty, and realize someone else walked off with it while you were too busy being polite. I drove home on autopilot, my brain replaying the scene over and over, rewriting it in ways where I had the perfect comeback. "Oh, you're going with Trent's concept? Great. Does it come with a free crash and burn guarantee?" Too late now. By the time I parked in front of our house, I'd already made peace with one fact: I wasn't just done with Brightline Tech. I was done being the family's punching bag. Amber was in the kitchen when I walked in, on the phone, probably bragging about her brother's genius. When she saw me, her face froze for a split second, surprise, maybe guilt, but then she smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hey, babe, you left early." "Yeah," I said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Got replaced mid-sentence." "Saves time, really?" Her smile faltered. "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. It's just business. Right?" I said, taking a long sip. "Just business. The family kind." She sighed, The way people do when they're trying to sound patient but really mean you're embarrassing me in my own kitchen. Mason, you're overreacting. Trent's concept just aligned better with the investor's direction. Trent's concept? I repeated. You mean my project with his name stapled on it? She crossed her arms. This attitude is exactly why Dad worries about you. You take things too personally. I laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah. Well, getting robbed in broad daylight tends to feel a little personal, Amber. She rolled her eyes and turned back to her phone. You'll thank us later. This could be good for the company. There it was. Us. Not me. Not even him. Us. The family unit that apparently had a secret membership card I never got. I looked at her, this woman I'd married thinking we were partners, and realized she wasn't even on my side of the chessboard anymore. I was just the expendable pawn who thought love could outrank bloodline. I finished my beer, tossed the bottle in the sink, and said, you know what? You're right. Thank you. You just saved me 3 more years of wasting my life. She frowned. Mason, don't be rash. But I was already walking out of the kitchen, not storming, not slamming doors, just walking. The quiet kind of anger that doesn't make noise because it's too focused. I went straight to the study, pulled open the bottom drawer, and stared at the files I'd kept. Notes, test logs, backup drives, all of it. My work. My real work. I smiled to myself. They could have the fake presentation, the investors' applause, and the empty headlines. I had the real formula, and that meant they'd come crawling back eventually. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Trent's smug face, Amber's approving smile, Richard's calculating stare. The whole performance played on loop like a bad commercial. Around 3 a.m., I got up, made a pot of coffee strong enough to remove paint, and opened my laptop. I started a new document titled Project Iron Core, Independent Version. The cursor blinked like it was daring me to start over. So I did. By sunrise, I'd outlined my next move. I wasn't going to rant online, sue anyone, or make a scene. That's what amateurs do. No, I was going to do what I did best, build something better, something they couldn't steal because they wouldn't understand it. Revenge wasn't about screaming louder. It was about smiling quieter. So yeah, that Tuesday started as the day I got replaced mid-sentence. But by Thursday, I'd already started writing the next chapter, one where the punchline was mine. And if Karma was listening, I was ready to make her proud. They say hindsight is 20/20, but in my case, it's more like 4K Ultra HD with surround sound and director's commentary. Looking back, the moment I accepted a family offer from Amber's dad, I basically handed him a leash and said, pull whenever you want, sir. I didn't see it then, of course. Back then, I thought I was stepping into opportunity. Joining Brightline Tech sounded classy, like one of those sleek Silicon Valley companies where people ride scooters and pretend kombucha is a personality. Spoiler alert, it was less innovative startup and more family cult with quarterly reports. I'd worked my way up the hard way. My first job was fixing printers at a call center that smelled like burnt coffee and regret. Then I freelanced for a few tech firms, grinding out code while eating ramen that came in more flavors than dignity. So when Richard, my soon-to-be father-in-law, pulled me aside during our engagement dinner and said, Mason, I could use a sharp mind like yours at Brightline, I thought I'd just been knighted. The man wore tailored suits, had a voice that could sell ice to Antarctica, and reeked of cigar money and generational arrogance. We're all family here, he said. That should have been the red flag. In corporate language, we're all family here translates to we don't pay you enough to complain. So there I was, Mason, the loyal husband/engineer, bright-eyed and stupid enough to believe nepotism could work in my favor. I joined Brightline with dreams of respect, collaboration, maybe even a corner office one day. Instead, I got fluorescent lighting, lukewarm coffee, and a front row seat to Trent's mediocrity on parade. He was the ideas guy. Every company has one. The guy who walks into meetings uninvited, throws out buzzwords like synergy and scalability, and then disappears right before the work starts. And guess who had to make those ideas actually work? Yeah. Yours truly. At first, I didn't mind. I told myself it was just part of earning trust, proving my worth, the usual self-delusion people use before they realize they're being exploited. Every week, Richard would give one of his motivational speeches to the team. We're not just a company, we're a legacy. While I was in the back, mentally calculating how much caffeine it would take to survive the next sprint. The day I realized I was just free labor in a family-run circus started like any other Monday. Too early, too caffeinated, and too optimistic for what was about to hit me. I was halfway through debugging a module when Trent strolled into my office wearing designer sneakers and the confidence of a man who's never been told no. "Bro," he said, dragging out the word like it was a threat. "Dad wants to see the prototype." "Which one?" I asked, not looking up. "The one you've been working on," he said. "You know, my project." I looked up then. "Your project?" He grinned, that perfectly punchable grin. "Yeah, man. The stabilization module. The investors love it. I'm presenting it next week." For a moment, I thought he was joking. But Trent didn't joke about stealing credit. He did it as naturally as breathing. "You do realize," I said slowly, "that I wrote the entire code from scratch, right?" He waved his hand like I was interrupting his vibe. "We're family, Mason. What's yours is ours. If homicide were legal in small doses, I'd have qualified for parole by lunch." Still, I bit my tongue, mostly because Amber had been pushing the whole "it's just temporary" line. She said her dad respected my work, that he saw me as a future partner in the company. Partner? Right. I was the unpaid intern with better grammar. Her dad, Richard, was another piece of work. Imagine the monopoly man with a trust fund and a god complex. Every morning he'd walk through the office with his trademark smile, that kind of smug calm people get when they've never had to reheat leftovers. He'd stop by my desk sometimes, pat my shoulder, and say things like, "Mason, we're counting on you to keep us innovative." Translation: do all the work while I take the credit at the shareholder dinner. And don't even get me started on the company culture. Brightline was less like a team and more like a reality show. Trent's girlfriend, Lexi, ran social media. His cousin, Greg, was head of HR, despite thinking HR stood for hot receptionists. Even Amber worked there, technically in marketing, though her main role seemed to be defending Trent from accountability. I swear nepotism in that office had its own employee ID. Every time I tried to raise concerns, Richard would say, "You're overthinking it, Mason. We're all family." I'd nod like an idiot while imagining a future where I invented a time machine just to slap my past self for believing him. Then came the week before the big betrayal, the one that kicked off my villain origin story. We had a major presentation scheduled, a pitch to land investors for a product that could literally change the wireless industry. I'd been perfecting the design for months, running simulations until my laptop sounded like it was training for a marathon. I submitted everything on the internal server, thinking my name would, actually stay on it. Guess what? The following Monday, a new version appeared. Same work, same format, but now the header said Concept Lead, Trent Collins. The lights hummed overhead, and the whiteboard was covered in my notes, equations, formulas, outlines. In the quiet, I finally said it out loud: I'm the free labor. It was both depressing and liberating, like realizing your favorite restaurant has been giving you food poisoning for years. I packed up that night with one promise to myself: never again. The next time I walked into that building, I wouldn't be their pawn. I'd be the guy holding the whole board. And if that meant smiling through fake meetings, playing along with Richard's "we're all family" act, and letting Trent think he was the genius, fine. Let them dig their own hole. I'd be the one selling the shovels. So yeah, I didn't get here by luck. I got here by caffeine, unpaid overtime, and the sheer stupidity of believing family meant fairness. Brightline Tech wasn't just a company. It was a perfectly air-conditioned trap. But by the time I realized I'd walked into it, I was already planning my way out. Because if there's one thing I learned working for the Collins clan, it's that family might screw you over faster than a stranger, but they never see it coming when you screw back harder. You ever wake up the morning after a disaster and convince yourself it was all a dream? Yeah, that was me on Wednesday, for about 8 seconds. Then I saw the half-packed boxes in my living room, remembered Trent's smirk, Amber's "it's just business" speech, and, boom, back to reality. Population: one idiot husband who got professionally pickpocketed. I brewed my coffee like it owed me child support, triple shot, no mercy, and stared at my reflection in the microwave door. There it was. The face of a man who'd spent years saving a company that couldn't even save him a seat. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. Probably Amber texting something tone-deaf like, "You'll find something new. Proud of you for being mature." Mature? Yeah, because silence is maturity when rage could file a police report. By 8:30, I decided to go back to the office. Not for closure, not for revenge, at least, that's what I told myself. I just wanted to collect my things before someone accidentally repurposed my desk into a shrine for Trent's greatness. I drove there on complete autopilot, windows down, the kind of morning sun that dares you to feel hopeful. My car stereo played some old rock track, and for a moment, I almost convinced myself this was a new chapter. Maybe I'd start a consulting firm. Maybe even teach. Then I pulled into the parking lot and saw the big bright line logo shining like it was mocking me. My stomach dropped like it had seen the bill at a steakhouse. The lobby looked the same. Modern, sterile, pretentious. Glass walls everywhere, like the building was proud of having no secrets, except the big one they just pulled on me. Leia, the receptionist, spotted me immediately. Her eyes widened like she'd just seen a ghost haunting its own workplace. "Mr. Mason?" she whispered. "You okay?" "Fantastic," I said. "Just cleaning up the crime scene." Her lips twitched. "If you need me to fake a fire drill while you sneak out, I can." "Appreciate it," I said, giving her a small smile. "But I think the place will burn on its own soon enough." I walked down the hall to my office. Correction, Trent's new innovation workspace. According to the sign on the door, he'd actually renamed it. The audacity was Olympic level. Inside, it looked like someone had tried to stage a tech bro habitat. My plants were gone, replaced with a neon hustle hard sign. My ergonomic chair had been swapped for some Instagram-friendly beanbag that screamed unemployed in 6 months. I ignored the decor and went straight for my desk. Most of my stuff was still there, my notebooks, flash drives, a mug that said "World's Okayest Employee." Irony hits different now. I started packing quietly, but I could feel eyes on me. People walking by would slow down, pretending to check emails while sneaking pity glances. The rumor mill must have been working overtime. In corporate culture, watching someone fall from grace is better than Netflix. Then came the cherry on top. My so-called manager, Jeff, a guy who built his career entirely on forwarding my emails and calling it delegation, strolled in like he owned the place. "Hey, Mason," he said, too cheerful. "Didn't expect to see you." "Yeah," I said. "I wanted to leave before you changed the Wi-Fi password." Quote. He chuckled, missing the sarcasm entirely. "Listen, man. No hard feelings, right? Trent just connected better with the investors." "Of course," I said, closing a box. "They always love the guy with good hair and bad math." He frowned, clearly not sure if I was joking. Spoiler, I wasn't. Before he could reply, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, mumbled something about a follow-up meeting, and bolted like a man allergic to confrontation. Typical Jeff, emotionally ghosting mid-sentence since 2016. I sat down for a moment, just to breathe, surrounded by the echoes of a job that used to mean something. Every scribble on the whiteboard, every sticky note, every dent in the desk, it was all me. Every sleepless night I spent making sure Trent didn't crash the project now looked like evidence in my own betrayal. My phone buzzed again. Amber. I sighed and looked. Her text said, "Trent's presentation killed. Everyone loved it." My thumbs hovered over the screen for a second before typing, "I bet." Then I tossed the phone onto the table like it was contaminated. The bitterness hit hard, the kind that makes your coffee taste like regret. I knew I had to leave before I said something unprintable to someone who didn't deserve the courtesy of hearing it. So I took one last look at the office, the desk that had seen more of my life than my own living room, and placed my company badge on top. I left it there like a calling card at a funeral. On my way out, Zara from research spotted me by the elevator. She was one of the few sane people in that building. "You're leaving?" she asked softly. "Seems that way." Her expression tightened. "You didn't deserve this, you know." "Yeah," I said, pressing the elevator button. "But life's not an HR department." She laughed, then frowned. "For what it's worth, Trent's demo was rough. That got my attention." "Rough?" "More like a tech apocalypse," she whispered. "He was sweating through his shirt by the second slide. Half the code crashed on launch. You could smell the panic from the hallway." I smirked. "Good. Hope the crash report sends him a thank you note." The elevator dinged, doors sliding open like the universe was cueing my exit. "If he asks for help," Zara said, lowering her voice, "what do I tell him?" I grinned. "Tell him to Google humility." The doors closed, and I couldn't stop smiling. For the first time that week, I felt something other than fury. I felt vindicated, because no matter how much they'd taken from me, they couldn't fake competence. I drove home slower this time, letting that petty little joy marinate. The sky was overcast, but I swear it looked brighter than usual. When I got back, Amber wasn't there. Probably out celebrating Trent's big win. Good. I needed quiet. I cracked open another beer, sat on the couch, and started flipping through my notebooks. Inside were pages of calculations, sketches, timestamps, all the proof I'd ever need that the core tech was mine. I'd kept backup logs, version histories, even cloud timestamps tied to my personal email. Every detail was airtight. As I looked through it all, something strange happened. I stopped feeling like a victim. I started feeling dangerous. There's a special kind of calm that comes when you realize the people who screwed you over are about to crash without you. They think they've won, but you're the only one holding the safety manual. It's like watching someone steal your car and knowing the engine blows up at 40 miles per hour. By evening, my phone had blown up with messages. Amber again, dinner tonight. Dad wants to talk. I stared at it for a full minute, then typed, tell him to talk to his new genius instead. Sent. Blocked. Freedom never tasted so satisfying. Later that night, as I boxed up the rest of my old work gear, I realized something. Every empire built on lies eventually collapses under its own ego. Brightline Tech was a house of mirrors, all flash, no foundation, and Trent had just set fire to the blueprint. As for me, I was finally out. No more fake family meetings. No more unpaid overtime. No more pretending I was part of something that only saw me as a tool. I poured another drink, raised it to the empty room, and said, to new beginnings, preferably ones that don't involve in-laws. Outside, thunder rumbled like the universe was toasting back. The next morning would bring phone calls, panic, maybe even a visit. But that night, sitting in my quiet apartment, surrounded by my own work, my real work, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. And for once, the only approval I needed came from the man in the reflection of my beer bottle. Tired, betrayed, but finally free enough to smile. Thursday morning, 9:02 a.m. I was halfway through making breakfast, if you can call black coffee and cold pizza a balanced meal, when my phone started buzzing like it owed someone money. I ignored it once, twice. But the third time it started vibrating off the counter like it had something to confess. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Normally, that's a straight to voicemail situation, but something in my gut said, this will be good. I answered with my most uninterested voice. Yeah? Mason, buddy, it's Colin. The voice was frantic, shaky, the kind of tone you hear right before someone asks if you know CPR. I sipped my coffee. Colin. The CFO. The man who once told me to simplify my innovation speak because investors don't like big words. How could I forget? He laughed nervously. Right. Ha ha. Listen, man. We've got a situation. I leaned against the counter. Oh, do tell. Did Trent run out of hair product or metaphors? Colin didn't take the bait. It's the demo. The big investor meeting. It's not working. I pretended to gasp, clutching my imaginary pearls. Not working? You mean the revolutionary concept your golden boy developed all by himself? Look, Mason, he said, his voice cracking like a teenager at prom. We just need a few pointers. Maybe walk us through the build again. I swear it's urgent. The investors are flying in at 11. We can't afford another crash. I took a long sip, letting the silence marinate like fine revenge wine. Sounds serious. It is serious, he said, desperate now. Trent's freaking out. Richard's pacing the conference room. And Amber, well, Amber's trying to do damage control with Clare from the investor group. We need you, man. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. Oh, I bet you do. But see, the thing is, Colin, I'm kind of busy right now. My toaster is having a mental breakdown, and someone's got to supervise. Mason, please. Click. I hung up and grinned so wide I could have sold toothpaste. You know that deep, soul-level satisfaction that comes when karma finally does her job? That was me, standing in my kitchen with yesterday's pizza and a front row seat to poetic justice. For once, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't feel small. I felt like the guy who left the movie 10 minutes early, knowing exactly how it ends. Still, curiosity is a stubborn friend. I opened my laptop and logged into the Brightline internal news feed. I'd kept my credentials active, just in case. Sure enough, there it was. Investor demo postponed due to technical issues. Translation: Trent's masterpiece exploded on launch like a cheap firework. I scrolled through the comments section. Employees gossiping in coded corporate speak. Zorro, so. Anyone know what happened with the stabilization prototype? Leia, front desk, rumor says Trent unplugged something important. Devin_Joe, can confirm. He unplugged Mason. I nearly spit out my coffee. At 9:45, the phone buzzed again. Same number. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. And again. Then Amber's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won again. Plus, I was dying to hear how she'd spin this. Hey, sweetheart, I said, dripping with fake cheer. How's the family empire? Mason, this isn't funny, she snapped. The demo failed completely. The code's broken and the investors are already here. Oh no, I said, feigning concern. That must be so stressful, having to rely on stolen work and all. She huffed. You're being childish. Probably, I said. But at least I'm not unemployed and a plagiarist. Mason, she hissed. Please, can you just come help? You know this affects me, too. Ah, there it was. The me card. Amber could turn global warming into a personal inconvenience. You mean your brother embarrassed the entire company and now your name's attached to the fallout? Her silence said everything. Amber, I said finally. I'm flattered you think I can fix Trent's mess, but I'm all booked up today. Got a lot of not saving idiots on the schedule. Then I hung up again, gently this time, out of respect for the art of satisfaction. For the next hour, I lounged on my couch watching reruns of Shark Tank, sipping my coffee while imagining the chaos over at Bright Line. Richard pacing like a zoo lion. Colin sweating through his suit. Amber trying to look composed while Trent probably blamed the air conditioning. I almost felt bad. Almost. By 10:30, the texts started pouring in. Zara, Colin, even Jeff, all variations of please come back. My favorite was from Trent himself. Bro, we need you, bro. The same guy who erased my name off a 3-year project suddenly remembered we share pronouns. I didn't reply. Instead, I texted Zara privately, how bad is it? She replied instantly, imagine a dumpster fire. Now add fireworks and a live audience. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Around 11, I put on some music and went back to my laptop. Not the Bright Line stuff, my stuff. The real formula, the one I'd quietly rebuilt under a new name, Iron Core. Cleaner, faster, smarter. I had it documented, patented, timestamped. No one could touch it. Every line of code, every model refinement, every test result, mine. Theirs was a cheap imitation built on arrogance. My phone buzzed again. Colin, persistent as a telemarketer. I let it go to voicemail, then hit play just for fun. Mason, buddy, it's Colin again. Look, we're sorry, okay? Maybe we handled things badly, but you've got to understand, the company's on the line here. The investors are threatening to pull funding. Trent's losing it. Please, just come by for an hour. I'll make it worth your while. Whatever you want, we'll figure it out. I whistled. Whatever I want. That was rich, coming from a man whose idea of negotiation used to be free parking validation. Still, I'll admit, hearing him panic lit something inside me. Not pity. Power. The kind of power that comes from knowing your silence is more valuable than their begging. Around noon, I got dressed. Nothing fancy, just jeans and a t-shirt that said not my problem. I walked out to the balcony, phone in hand, and called Colin back. Mason, thank God. I cut him off. Hey, quick question. What's Trent doing right now? He's rewriting slides. The investors are waiting in the conference room. Cool, I said. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell him I said hi, then tell him I said no. And tell Richard to stop calling, because every time my phone buzzes, my hourly rate doubles. Mason, please. Colin, I interrupted. You had one job. Keep your house clean. Instead, you let a guy with the IQ of wet cardboard hijack my life's work. So now you get to clean up the mess without me. Mason, I'll pay. Oh, I know you will, I said, smirking. Just not me. Not anymore. Click. I turned off my phone and stared at the skyline. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. Not the fake kind you practice in therapy, but the dangerous kind. The kind that comes when the people who wronged you finally realize they can't touch you anymore. My neighbor, an old guy named Ted, who smoked cigars and minded everyone's business, yelled from his balcony. You look too happy for someone on a work call. Retirement, I said. He laughed. Good for you, kid. Yeah. Retirement. From being everyone's fixer. From being taken for granted. From pretending I owed loyalty to people who'd sell me out for a LinkedIn post. By 2 p.m., I'd opened my email. Sitting there like a cherry on top was one from Brightline's HR, formal notice, intellectual property rights inquiry. I laughed so hard I nearly fell out of my chair. They actually thought they could threaten me for taking what was already mine. I replied with a single line, don't worry. I didn't take anything. That's why you can't make it work. Then I attached a smiley face. Professionalism matters. And as I hit send, I realized something. Revenge wasn't always about destruction. Sometimes it was just about timing. The perfect moment when you choose not to save them. Because watching arrogance implode from a distance, that's the kind of therapy money can't buy. Phase 1 of poetic justice was officially complete. 2 hours after I told Colin to Google humility, I was sprawled on my couch, halfway through a rerun of Suits, enjoying the kind of peace only other people's chaos can bring. My coffee had gone cold, my phone was on airplane mode, and I was humming along to the theme song like a man whose enemies were finally paying their karmic bills. Then came the knock. Not a polite, "Excuse me, may I?" knock. No, this one sounded like the person on the other side had a personal grudge against wood. 3 rapid, heavy thuds, followed by silence. The kind of silence that says, "Open up, or I'll start using my forehead." I sighed. If that's another delivery scam, I swear. I opened the door. And there he was. Richard Collins, my father-in-law, CEO of Brightline Tech, destroyer of good moods. Except this time, he didn't look like a man in charge. His perfect hair was slightly out of place. His tie hung loose like it had given up on him, and there was a faint layer of sweat glistening on his forehead. It was like seeing a lion show up at your door wearing a flea collar. "Mason," he said, with the calm tone of a man pretending he didn't just spend the morning in corporate hell. "We need to talk." "Do we?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Because last time we talked, you said, and I quote, 'This family doesn't tolerate emotional decisions in business.' Seems like karma heard you." He forced a smile, the kind people wear at funerals. "Look, son. Please don't," I said, holding up a hand. "You lost son privileges the moment your actual son stole my project." His jaw twitched. "Fine, Mason. I came here to make things right." I tilted my head. "Is that so? Or did your Golden Boys Science Fair project explode in front of investors?" His silence confirmed it. I stepped aside, gesturing toward the couch. "Come in. But wipe your shoes, sarcasm isn't the only thing I don't want on my floor." He hesitated, then entered, looking around like the apartment was foreign territory, which, to be fair, it probably was. He didn't exactly visit the homes of the people who made him rich. I sat opposite him and let him speak first. Always let desperate men dig their own hole. "Mason," he began, smoothing his tie like it might help him find dignity. "The investors, well, they're considering withdrawing completely. Trent's demo malfunctioned. The system crashed multiple times. The backup presentation failed." Colin nearly fainted. "Sounds like a normal Brightline meeting," I said. His eyes narrowed. "We can fix this. You can fix this." Ah, there it was. The compliment disguised as a command. I leaned back. "You're right. I can. But the better question is, why should I?" "Because," he said quickly, "this company is part of your legacy, too. Amber's legacy. Don't you want to protect what you helped build?" I laughed, loud, genuine, the kind that fills the room and makes the other person realize they've lost control of the conversation. "Richard, the only thing I built there was unpaid overtime and trust issues." His composure cracked for a moment. "You're being unreasonable." "Unreasonable?" I repeated. "That's rich, coming from a man who let his son plagiarize me in front of a live audience." He sighed heavily. "Mason, we both know Trent made mistakes. But he's still family, and family deserves second chances." "Ah," I said, raising a finger. "But I'm family, too, right? Or did that membership expire when I stopped being useful?" He went quiet. Then finally, he said the words I'd been waiting for. "What will it take to bring you back?" There it was, the sound of desperation dressed in diplomacy. I let it sit in the air for a moment. "Name your terms," he said, leaning forward now, voice almost pleading. "Salary, position, recognition, whatever it is, we can make it work." I smiled slowly. "Okay. First term, Trent publicly admits he has the IQ of wet cardboard." His face froze. "Be serious." "I am," I said. "Because that's what it'll take to balance the scales. Until then, I'm just watching this corporate car crash from a lawn chair." "Mason," he said, his tone sharpening. "This isn't a joke. People's jobs are on the line. And whose fault is that?" I shot back. "I spent years being told to stay in my lane. And now you want me to take the wheel because Trent can't drive without hitting a wall?" He exhaled through his nose, clearly fighting back the urge to say something regrettable. "You're making a mistake. You can't take company research with you. Everything you built at Brightline belongs to Brightline." I grinned, slow and deliberate. "Don't worry. I didn't take anything. That's why you can't make it work." He blinked. Once. Twice. The realization landed like a brick. "You didn't," he said quietly. "Oh, I did," I replied. "Just not for you." He stood up then, straightening his jacket as if that would restore the authority he'd just lost. You're playing a dangerous game, Mason. Then it's about time you learned how to lose, I said. For a second, I thought he might actually explode, the kind of silent rage where a vein pops and you start reevaluating your life choices. Instead, he just nodded stiffly. You'll regret this. I shrugged. Maybe. But at least I'll enjoy the view from this side of regret. He walked toward the door, but before leaving, he turned back. Amber won't forgive you for this. I smiled. Funny, she never forgave me for being smarter than her brother, either. Door closed. End of meeting. I stood there for a moment, staring at the spot where Richard had just stood, the great CEO of Brightline, reduced to a desperate salesman trying to buy back confidence. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered all the times he'd called me emotional when I challenged him in meetings, or the way he patted Trent on the back for stealing my lines, and that sympathy evaporated faster than his company's market confidence. I sat back down, cracked open a soda, and turned on some jazz. The kind of smooth, arrogant music that makes victory feel cinematic. My phone buzzed again. A text from Amber. Dad came to see you. Please tell me you didn't make it worse. Me? Oh, absolutely. It's my new hobby. She didn't reply. Instead, a few minutes later, I got a call from Zara. Okay, she said breathlessly. Whatever you did, it worked. Richard came back from your place looking like he aged 10 years. The investors are threatening to walk, and Trent's in the restroom crying. Not even kidding. I grinned. Well, at least something's functioning in that building. Mason, she said, lowering her voice. This is chaos, but it's beautiful chaos. Just wait, I said. The best part's still coming. Please tell me you're not planning arson. Nope, I said, stretching my legs. I'm planning entrepreneurship. That night, as the city lights flickered outside my window, I started drafting the final blueprint for Iron Core Labs. My own company. My own tech. No stolen credits, no family politics, no fake smiles, just my work, my name, and my rules. By the time midnight rolled around, I'd already registered the domain and written a tagline, built on integrity. Powered by revenge. And the best part? I wasn't even angry anymore. Just amused. Because when people like Richard and Trent hit rock bottom, they don't realize it's not gravity that pulled them there, it's ego. So yeah, a visitor named Desperation came knocking that day. I welcomed him in, offered him a seat, let him talk himself into a corner, and sent him home empty-handed. It felt like redemption served at room temperature, with a side of petty satisfaction. By Friday morning, I was sitting at my favorite cafe, the one with Wi-Fi strong enough to download Karma in HD, nursing my fourth cup of coffee and wondering what victory was supposed to feel like. Turns out it feels a lot like caffeine-induced arrogance. The Brightline saga was imploding faster than a reality TV marriage, and I was just the guy in the audience with popcorn and screenshots. The bell above the door chimed, and in walked Clare, one of the lead investors from the Brightline fiasco. You know those people who look expensive even when they're just ordering a latte? That was Clare. She wore her wealth like it was tailored, because it probably was. When I'd seen her before, she was sitting in the front row at that disaster of a presentation, pretending to look impressed while Trent confused a metric for a metaphor. Mason, she said as she approached, voice calm but eyes sharp. Thanks for agreeing to meet. Hey, no problem, I said, gesturing to the seat across from me. I charge extra for short notice consultations, though. She smiled faintly and sat down. Let's start with the obvious. What the hell happened in there? I leaned back. Corporate plagiarism with a side of incompetence. Her brow arched. So Trent really had nothing to do with the project? Trent thinks API is a new social app, I said. So no. Not a damn thing. Claire exhaled, rubbing her temples. That explains why the code crashed before we even hit the demo stage. Yeah, I said. Turns out, pretending to be smart isn't the same as being smart. Who knew? She stared at me for a long moment, then leaned in slightly. Can you prove it? I sipped my coffee. I can do better than that. I pulled out a flash drive and slid it across the table. I can show it. Her eyes flicked down at the drive like it was the Holy Grail. What's this? The real formula, I said, lowering my voice. The original stabilization code, the one that actually works. You kept it? Of course, I said. You think I'd let those idiots take my life's work without a backup? Please. I may be a fool in love, but I'm not suicidal. She chuckled, shaking her head. I have to admit, this is bold. Bold? I said. Claire, they stole my work and tried to repackage it with Trent's name on it. I'm just repossessing my dignity one bite at a time. Her gaze softened. but only slightly. Who owns this tech? Legally speaking. I do, I said without hesitation. Independent development, time-stamped, documented, backed up, notarized, and occasionally cursed at between 2 and 4 a.m. I've got every email, every build log, and every version saved going back 3 years. It's mine. She raised a brow, clearly impressed. You were planning this? Planning? No, I said. Paranoid? Always. She laughed quietly, but there was something calculating behind her smile. You realize this puts you in a very powerful position. Mason, Brightline's investors aren't just mad. They're humiliated. Richard's been dodging calls since yesterday. Trent's been disinvited from every board dinner in the city. I couldn't help grinning. So you're saying it's my time to shine? I'm saying, she said, leaning forward, we'd rather put our money behind someone competent. Someone like you. Now, if my coffee hadn't already woken me up, that sentence sure did. Come again? Claire smiled. I represent a few investment partners who were very interested in your project before it went off the rails. We're not tied to Brightline anymore. We want the real deal, the functioning product. The working version. You. I stared at her, trying not to look too smug. You're offering to back me directly. She nodded. If you can demonstrate that what you have actually works, yes. I took a long breath, pretending to think while internally screaming, holy hell, this is happening. You'll have your demo, I said. But I'm not stepping foot in Brightline again. Good, she said, smiling. We'd rather you didn't. You'll present independently. Fresh name, clean slate. I already have one, I said, fishing a sleek black business card from my pocket and sliding it to her. Iron Core Labs, LLC. Officially registered yesterday. Her eyebrows shot up. You work fast. I smirked. Petty men are efficient. She laughed again, shaking her head. Send me a full presentation deck by tomorrow. If it checks out, we'll set up a meeting Monday morning. Done, I said, shaking her hand. And don't worry, this one won't crash halfway through. As she left, I watched her slide into a black car that probably cost more than my apartment complex. For a moment, I just sat there, letting it sink in. My so-called downfall had just flipped into a comeback. Trent stole my project. Richard buried my reputation. Amber stood by watching. And somehow, all of that had led me here, in a cafe, being courted by the very people they'd tried to impress. I couldn't resist sending a quick text to Zara. Guess who just got investor backing for Iron Core Labs? Her reply, holy hell. Are you serious? Serious as a heart attack at a barbecue. She sent 10 fire emojis and a please hire me. I laughed. Maybe I would. That afternoon, I holed up in my apartment, music blasting, laptop open, a fresh file titled Iron Core _investor deck _prk.pptx. Within hours, I had the whole presentation built. Polished slides, live demo video, clean graphs, the works. Every click felt like rewriting history. Halfway through the process, my phone buzzed. Amber again. I ignored it the first time. And the second. Finally, curiosity won. I opened the message. Heard you met with Clare. What are you doing, Mason? Don't make this worse. I laughed so loud I scared my neighbor's cat through the wall. Worse? Oh, sweetheart. This was worse for her family. I typed back, just building something that actually works. Try it sometime. Then I muted her. By evening, I sent Claire the deck along with a note, prototype ready for live demo. No fireworks, no plagiarism. Minutes later, she replied, Monday, 9 a.m. downtown. Don't be late. I closed my laptop, sat back, and let out a long breath. For the first time in months, I felt that electric thrill. Not revenge, not anger, purpose. The kind that keeps you up at night, but in a good way. The kind that says, you're back. Around midnight, I poured myself a drink and went out onto the balcony. The city lights stretched out below, bright and restless, like ambition itself. My phone buzzed one last time that night. Zara again. Just heard Richard yelling in the office. Something about betrayal from within. Colin looks like he's aged 10 years. Trent's hiding in the break room. It's beautiful chaos. I grinned at the message, took a sip, and whispered, and it's only just begun. That night, as I shut off the lights, I caught my reflection in the window. Tired, sure, but smiling. The kind of smile that comes from surviving the storm and realizing you're the thunder now. By Friday morning, Brightline Tech was trending for all the wrong reasons. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree with notifications, news alerts, texts, and even a meme someone made of Trent with the caption, When you copy your homework but forget to change the name. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I was still in bed, half under the blanket, holding a cup of coffee like it was an Oscar, scrolling through the chaos when Zara texted me. Trent blames the software. Richard just broke his golf mug. Amber's crying in HR. I couldn't help it. I started laughing so hard I spilled half my coffee on the sheets. Worth it. Brightline's downfall was happening in real time. And I didn't even need popcorn, I was full on caffeine and petty satisfaction. The company that once told me I lacked leadership initiative was now falling apart because their actual leadership thought competence was optional. By 10, Colin had tried calling 5 times. I ignored every single one. Let the man sweat. Let him earn his panic. Around the 6th attempt, I finally picked up, mostly because I wanted to hear how bad it really was. Mason, he practically yelled. Buddy, we need to talk. Still busy supervising my toaster's recovery, I said, cutting him off. Make it quick. He sighed, defeated already. It's bad, man. Investors pulled half their commitment. The demo crash went viral. Someone leaked part of the meeting recording online. Someone? I asked, raising an eyebrow even though he couldn't see it. You mean the entire internet? He ignored that. Richard's furious. Trent's threatening to resign. Wow, I interrupted. You mean he's finally volunteering to do something useful? Mason, this isn't funny, he groaned. We're sinking. Yeah, I said. Karma's got good aim. He went quiet. I could almost hear him staring at the wall, questioning his life choices. You really won't come back? Colin, I said, smiling into the phone. The Titanic already hit the iceberg. I'm just selling life jackets at a discount. Then I hung up. I swear the satisfaction of ending that call should be bottled and sold as therapy. After that, I decided to get some air. I threw on a hoodie, grabbed my laptop, and went to a nearby cafe, the same one where I'd met Claire. The place was buzzing, and not just from espresso. A few people at a nearby table were actually talking about Brightline. Did you see the video? That CEO guy looked like he was about to cry. I heard the investors walked out halfway through. Man, that's what happens when you fake it till you break it. I sipped my latte and smiled like the universe's favorite audience member. My phone buzzed again. Zara, my unofficial correspondent, was back at it. Colin just blamed the janitor for bad energy. Trent locked himself in his office. Amber's asking if you're behind this. Tell her I'm too busy being awesome. A few seconds later, Zara sent a photo, Amber sitting in HR, mascara smudged, eyes red. I zoomed in. Not out of cruelty. Okay, maybe a little, but because it was poetic. The woman who once told me I was too emotional for business decisions was now sobbing because her family's empire was crumbling faster than a dry cookie. I texted back, the irony is strong with this one. By noon, I'd switched from coffee to iced tea and from quiet satisfaction to full-blown scheming. I'd already sent Claire everything she needed for the investor meeting on Monday. But the Brightline implosion was a free show, and I wasn't about to look away. I opened the news again. Headline after headline. Brightline Tech faces investor exodus after failed demo. Richard Collins silent amid corporate collapse. Anonymous source claims stolen research behind Brightline's downfall. Anonymous source, huh? Wonder who that could be. My phone rang again. Amber this time. I stared at the screen for a good 10 seconds before answering. Hey, sunshine, I said. How's the circus? Mason, she said, voice trembling. I'm trying to fix this, but the investors won't even talk to Dad. What did you do? I smiled. Nothing illegal, if that's what you're asking. Mason, this is serious. Our reputation is ruined. Our? I interrupted. Amber, when your brother stole my work, it became your family's problem. I'm just enjoying the rerun. Please, she said, voice breaking. Can't you just help them? They'll make it right. I leaned back, taking another slow sip. I did help, Amber. For 3 years. They didn't want my help then. Now they can enjoy the sequel. She was silent for a long time. Finally, she said, you're cruel. No, I said softly. I'm consistent. Then I hung up again. God, that was becoming my favorite part of the day. Around 2 p.m., Zara sent another update. Trent tried to demo again to prove himself. It froze on the first slide. Colin threw a pen at him. What a time to be alive. Also, Amber's packing up her desk. I blinked at that last one. Amber quitting? That was new. Why? I asked. She said something about not watching her family embarrass itself anymore. Then she started crying again. I didn't reply to that one. Not because I didn't care, okay, fine, maybe a little, but because it hit me how far things had gone. I'd spent years trying to earn respect from people who thought nepotism was a leadership trait. And now, watching them implode without me, I realized I never needed them. The funny thing about revenge, it doesn't feel like revenge when it's deserved. It feels like symmetry. By evening, Brightline's PR department had released a statement, some robotic nonsense about technical complications and ongoing reviews. The internet wasn't buying it. Twitter was roasting them alive. One user posted, "Brightline Tech, now featuring 100% more downtime." Another wrote, "Should have invested in Mason instead." I took a screenshot of that one and set it as my lock screen. Then, as if the day wasn't already perfect, Zara called me. "Okay, listen," she said, her voice breathless. "They're panicking. Like, DEFCON 1 levels of panic. Richard's yelling at Colin. Colin's yelling at everyone. HR is hiding. It's total chaos. I'm going to need you to record that," I said. She laughed. "You're enjoying this way too much." "Zara," I said, smiling, "I've earned this joy. I deserve an Emmy for surviving that company." She snorted. "You really did. Anyway, word is Richard's going to try and call you tonight." "Oh, he already did," I said. Door-to-door delivery of desperation. There was a pause. "You didn't agree to help him, right?" "Please," I said. "You think I'd give up front row tickets to my own redemption arc?" "Just checking," she said, laughing. "Because honestly, I'm rooting for you. Always have been." "Good," I said. "You'll be getting a better job offer soon." When I hung up, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. The bitterness that used to live in my chest had burned itself out, replaced by a calm sort of clarity. I didn't need to destroy Brightline. They were doing that perfectly fine on their own. All I had to do was exist, and succeed. That night, I poured a glass of whiskey, sat on my balcony, and watched the city lights blur into a quiet glow. Somewhere downtown, I imagined Richard sitting in his glass office, wondering where it all went wrong. Somewhere else, Trent was probably trying to code his way out of failure with Google open and tears in his eyes. And Amber, maybe she was finally realizing that loyalty to the wrong people is just another form of self-sabotage. As for me, I had Iron Core Labs and a meeting on Monday that would make everything official. The empire I'd once bled for was melting, and I hadn't lifted a finger. And damn, it looked beautiful in the flames. By Monday morning, I looked like the kind of man who'd finally slept through the apocalypse. Fresh shave, pressed shirt, and the kind of quiet grin that says, "Some people burn bridges. I build new highways." My presentation for Iron Core Labs was loaded, rehearsed, and about to hit the same crowd that had once applauded Trent like he'd reinvented physics. I walked into the downtown glass tower office Clare had booked. Panoramic view of the skyline, sunlight bouncing off every reflective surface like the universe itself had RSVP'd. The receptionist, polished and polite, asked for my name. "Mason Reed," I said, adjusting my tie. "Founder and CEO, Iron Core Labs." Her eyes flicked up in recognition. "Oh, you're that Mason." I grinned. "The one and only. Don't worry. I'm friendlier than my headlines." Inside the conference room sat the same investors who'd once clapped for Trent. Silver-haired men in designer suits. 2 women with tablets out like weapons. And Claire at the head, cool as ever. Except this time, the atmosphere was different. No Richard, no Trent. Just opportunity, caffeine, and payback. Claire gestured. "Gentlemen, this is the man who actually built what you thought you were buying." "Pleasure," I said, setting up my laptop. "Let's skip the buzzwords. Here's what actually works." When the demo began, I didn't just show slides. I showed results. Live data streams. Real-time simulation. The stabilization module flickered on screen, running smoother than a politician dodging questions. The investors leaned forward like kids watching fireworks. "So," I said, pacing slowly. "Unlike the other version, also known as the Titanic, this system doesn't crash when you look at it funny. It self-adjusts using predictive modulation. No freezing, no lag, and definitely no tears in the restroom." The room chuckled. Claire hid a smile behind her coffee cup. One of the men, a billionaire type with a tie that probably had a trust fund, asked, "So you're telling us this is the original tech Brightline tried to sell?" "Not quite," I said. "This is the improved version, built from the same foundation, except this time, the builder actually knows what he's doing." Laughter rippled through the room. Claire gave me a subtle nod. The "you nailed it" kind. I kept the demo rolling. The live system handled every stress test I threw at it. Not a single glitch. By the end, even the skeptical ones looked impressed. One woman whispered, "Flawless." Claire leaned back. "So, Mason, what are you asking for?" I clicked to the next slide. Clean, bold letters, Iron Core Labs, independent. Secure. Scalable. "I'm asking," I said, "for you to invest in innovation that's not built on nepotism. I don't need their old company. I don't need their approval. What I need are partners who value results over family trees." Applause. Real, genuine applause, not the fake we're networking kind. Claire smiled wider than I'd ever seen her. "Well," she said, "I think we found our new lead innovator." The contracts came out next, thick, crisp, and gloriously official. I signed each page with the same satisfaction you get when unsubscribing from an ex's Netflix account. After the meeting, Claire pulled me aside. "That was brilliant." I shrugged. 3 years of forced humility will do that to a guy. She laughed. "How does it feel?" "Like justice with a caffeine buzz," I said. "You ever see someone get fired in slow motion? Because that's what's about to happen to Brightline." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed her an email I'd just received. "Breaking news, Brightline Tech halts operations pending audit." She blinked. "You leaked something, didn't you?" "Who, me?" I said innocently. "I just reminded a few reporters that the revolutionary demo was stolen intellectual property. They did the rest." Claire smirked. "You're dangerous." "Only when provoked," I said. Outside, I walked into the sunlight feeling 10 pounds lighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's employee or someone's in-law project. I was my own showman. I headed straight to my car, rolled down the windows, and turned up the radio. The announcer's voice cut through the static. "In tech news, Brightline Tech faces massive backlash after reports of internal misconduct and product theft. Sources claim a former engineer, Mason Reed, may have been the rightful creator of their failed product." I actually laughed out loud. "Former engineer, huh? Try upgrade." My phone buzzed again. "Zara, naturally. They're losing their minds. Richard's been in meetings all day. Trent's hiding. Amber's threatening PR lawsuits. And I just got funded. No way. Iron Core? Iron Core. Signed and sealed. Holy crap, Mason. You did it. Correction, we did it. You're getting a job offer soon." Her reply was all caps and celebratory emojis. By lunchtime, I was walking into a rooftop restaurant, phone buzzing nonstop with congratulations from old coworkers, friends, even 1 or 2 Brightline employees who jumped ship mid-synergy. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was the rumor true? Oh, it was true. And I was loving every second of it. I ordered a burger, toasted my success with a Coke, and replayed the week's events in my head like a highlight reel. Me walking out of that boardroom in humiliation. Richard begging at my door. Trent crying into his PowerPoint. Amber realizing her last name wasn't a career. And now me, signing multi-million-dollar contracts under a new name. When the waitress brought the bill, she smiled. "Are you the guy from the news?" I chuckled. "Depends. Do I look guilty or successful?" "Successful," she said. "The guilty ones don't tip well." I left her 20%. Petty men have class, too. That evening, I drove home through downtown traffic, phone still buzzing with updates. A text from Colin popped up. "You really did it. Congrats, man. Wish I'd backed you sooner." "You wish," I typed back. And then another message, from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Amber." I stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone face down. She could wait. I had better company now, success, vindication, and the faint sound of karma breakdancing in the distance. At home, I poured myself a drink, opened my laptop, and checked the new Iron Core Labs email account. Dozens of inquiries already, potential hires, partnership offers, press interviews. I smiled. This was how it should have been all along. As the city lights flickered on outside, I thought back to that day in the boardroom when Trent cut me off mid-sentence. That smug look, that applause, Amber's proud little smile. It was burned into my memory, but now it didn't sting. It was fuel. Because if he hadn't humiliated me that day, I might never have left. I'd still be fixing his broken code and pretending to be grateful. Instead, I'd become the guy who stole the spotlight back without even raising his voice. My favorite part? Watching them try to explain my success to the press. He was a valued team member. Right. The same team member they replaced with nepotism and ego. I opened one last message from Claire. "Congratulations again, Mason. Investors are thrilled. Also, Brightline reached out. They want to meet." I said no, I laughed so loud my neighbor's dog barked. That night, sitting by my window, city glowing like a promise, I realized something simple but powerful. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes it comes with contracts, applause, and the quiet click of a pen signing your name where theirs used to be. I'd returned, not with vengeance, but with proof. Proof that I was the real showman all along. And as far as comebacks go, mine deserved a standing ovation. It was late, somewhere between reasonable bedtime and emotional damage o'clock, when the knock came. I'd just finished sending the final payroll setup for Iron Core Labs, officially becoming the boss I used to dream about having. The apartment was quiet, jazz playing low in the background, a single lamp on. My drink sat untouched, because honestly, victory was intoxicating enough. Then came that knock. 3 soft taps, then 2 louder ones. Hesitant but desperate. You can always tell when guilt's the one knocking, it doesn't have rhythm. I sighed, muting the music. If that's the landlord asking for rent early again, I swear. I opened the door. Trent. He looked nothing like the smug, cologne-drenched ideas man who'd stolen my project and strutted around boardrooms like he invented oxygen. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes big enough to hold regret. He stood there clutching his phone, trembling slightly. "You ruined me," he said, voice low, like he was scared of the truth echoing. I leaned on the doorframe. "No, Trent. You ruined you. I just turned on the lights." He flinched. "You don't get it, Mason. It's finished. Bright lines gone. Dad's yelling at clouds. Or maybe drafting another inspirational email about family teamwork," I interrupted. "Don't," he snapped. "Don't mock me." "Oh, trust me," I said. "This is me being merciful. The real mockery would have had slides." He groaned and dragged a hand through his hair. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to prove I could do something on my own." I raised an eyebrow. "By stealing something that wasn't yours? Interesting brand of independence." "Mason, please," he said, eyes darting around like maybe the neighbors were watching. "You've got your new company, your big win. You don't need to destroy us." I folded my arms. "Trent, the only thing I destroyed was the illusion that you knew what you were doing." He looked at me then, really looked at me, like he was seeing a different version of me for the first time. "You think you're the hero in this?" I smiled faintly. "No. Heroes forgive. I build empires out of ruins." For a second, he looked like he wanted to swing at me. But the arrogance had drained out of him. Instead, he just exhaled shakily. "Amber blames you for everything." I nodded. "Yeah. She texted, said I humiliated her family. I told her, technically, you did that. I just provided the popcorn." His jaw clenched. "You're enjoying this." "You're damn right I am," I said. "Do you know how many nights I stayed up fixing your garbage code while you were out drinking on daddy's dime? How many times I swallowed my pride so you wouldn't look incompetent in front of investors? You humiliated me in front of a room full of people, Trent. I walked out with nothing. So yeah, forgive me if I find this poetic." He stared at the floor. For once, he didn't have a comeback. "Dad's been trying to call you," he muttered. "I bet he wants to make you an offer. Tell him my rates doubled after I stopped caring." He looked up, frustration flickering behind the exhaustion. "Mason, what do you want from us?" I shrugged. "Nothing. That's the point. I don't want your company, your money, or your name attached to mine. I just want you to live with the fact that the guy you replaced mid-sentence is the same guy whose name is now trending under #Iron Core Revolution." His lips parted like he was about to say something, then closed again. He had no fight left. Just fear. After a long silence, he said softly, "I messed up." I nodded slowly. "Yeah. You did. Can you ever forgive me?" That one hit differently. It wasn't fake, not performative. For the first time in his spoiled, entitled life, Trent sounded like a man who'd finally seen his reflection without the family name fogging it up. I took a breath. "Trent, forgiveness isn't my currency anymore. I trade in lessons. And you've just had the most expensive one of your life." He looked like he might cry. I wasn't about to offer tissues. Some lessons need salt water. He nodded quietly, stepping back. "Good luck, Mason." "Already got it," I said, and shut the door. The click of the lock echoed like punctuation. Full stop. End of chapter. I stood there for a moment, letting the quiet settle. The funny thing about closure is it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence, the kind that tells you there's nothing left to prove. I poured myself a drink and walked to the window. The city lights looked different now. Less like a battlefield, more like a blank canvas. My phone buzzed again. Amber. I almost ignored it, but curiosity is a stubborn little demon. You humiliated my family. Your brother did that, I typed back. I just built a better product. A pause. Then, we're over, Mason. You've made that clear. Good. I needed the reminder. I didn't block her. Not this time. She wasn't worth the energy it took to hate her anymore. I turned off my phone and sat on the couch, feeling something new. Peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop arguing with people who refuse to understand. But peace didn't mean passivity. I had work to do. Big work. Iron Core Labs wasn't just a rebound project. It was the future, the kind of company that valued brains over bloodlines. I opened my laptop again. The screen cast a soft glow across the room. On my homepage, investor confirmations, signed contracts, early product interest. It was happening. Everything Brightline pretended to be, Iron Core was becoming, for real. Still, curiosity tugged at me. I opened the news. Headline: Brightline Tech officially declares bankruptcy following investor exodus. Below it, a picture of Richard standing outside his office, reporters swarming. The man looked small. Defeated. The caption read, "A company once valued at $400 million now under investigation for mismanagement and IP theft." I took a sip of my drink. Guess the universe handles audits, too. Scrolling further, I found another headline: Former Brightline engineer launches Iron Core Labs, attracts record funding. And just like that, there it was, side by side. Their failure. My rise. The poetic symmetry was almost cinematic. I leaned back and let out a deep laugh. One that came from somewhere real, the kind that feels like an exhale after holding your breath for too many years. A knock startled me again, lighter this time. I half expected Trent to return with more apologies, but when I opened the door, it was a courier holding an envelope. "Delivery for Mr. Reed," he said. I signed, thanked him, and closed the door. Inside the envelope, because the universe loves drama, was a legal notice. Brightline's lawyers, cease and desist regarding the Iron Core prototype. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. They were really trying this again. I grabbed a pen and scrawled my response across the first page in bold marker. Already patented. Already funded. Already yours to figure out. Sincerely, the guy you underestimated. I snapped a photo of it and emailed it to Richard's office. Then I poured another drink, raised it toward the ceiling, and said quietly, "To poetic justice." Somewhere downtown, Brightline's last lights were flickering out. And here I was, alive, unbothered, thriving. The knock of defeat had come to my door tonight, wearing the face of a man who once stole my voice. And I answered it, not with anger, but with a smile. Because this time, I didn't need revenge. I was the revenge. 48 hours. That's how long it took for everything to come full circle. 48 hours ago, I was the guy everyone at Brightline whispered about in pity, the poor bastard who got replaced mid-sentence by his wife's brother. Today, I was on the cover of Techfront Weekly, holding a cup of coffee like it was a trophy, under a headline that read, "Iron Core Labs, the Phoenix startup that rose from corporate ashes." If poetic justice were a flavor, I'd be licking the spoon. The article was brutal, for them. The journalist didn't pull punches. The first paragraph compared Brightline's collapse to a family-run theme park catching fire while the owners argued over who forgot to feed the lions. I almost framed that line. I was sitting in my apartment, which now doubled as Iron Core HQ, surrounded by empty coffee mugs and the faint hum of the city outside. My inbox was overflowing. Investors, reporters, people who used to ignore me at networking events now suddenly wanted a quick call to discuss potential synergies. Translation: "We didn't believe in you when it mattered, but now that you're winning, can we breathe near your success?" My phone buzzed. Colin again. I picked it up this time, purely for entertainment value. "Mason," he said, voice cracking. "Please tell me you've seen the news." "Oh, I've seen it," I said, spinning lazily in my chair. "It's my new favorite bedtime story." "This is bad, man," he said, panic seeping through the line. "Richard's losing it. We're completely out of funding. The board's resigning. I don't even know who's still technically employed." "That's wild," I said, feigning sympathy. "Almost like firing your smartest employee and replacing him with a haircut was a bad idea." He groaned. "Look, you made your point. But we need help. The patents, the prototypes, everything's tangled. The lawyers are circling. If we don't find a way out." "Colin," I said, cutting him off. "Buddy, listen carefully. You're trying to save a building that's already rubble, and I'm the guy selling blueprints for skyscrapers." He was quiet for a moment. Then, Quietly, Richard wants to make you another offer. Triple what you were making before. Full rights. Full recognition. Recognition? I repeated. You mean the kind where they pretend I never existed until it's convenient? Yeah, no, thanks. My coffee machine gives me more recognition. Mason, please. Colin, I said, my tone soft but final. It's over. Tell Richard the funding he's begging for, it's already coming to me. Then, with the kind of satisfaction you can't fake, I hung up. I leaned back, exhaled, and grinned. It's already coming to me. That was my victory lap. 3 years of quiet humiliation, all paid off in a single mic drop. But the universe, apparently, wasn't done giving me encore moments. At precisely 9 a.m., there was a knock at my door. Not a timid one, firm, corporate, expensive. I opened it and found myself looking at a man in a dark navy suit, holding an envelope with the bright line logo barely visible under a coffee stain. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Mason Reed? He asked. Depends, I said. You here to sue me or congratulate me? He didn't blink. Both, probably. Cool, I said, stepping aside. Come on in. I've got coffee and moral superiority. He handed me the envelope, official notice from Bright Line's legal department. I tore it open while he stood there fidgeting. Inside was a cease and desist letter, again claiming that Iron Core's tech potentially infringed on Bright Line's proprietary intellectual property. I read it once, then laughed so hard the poor guy jumped. You're serious? They're still doing this? I'm just the messenger, he said quickly. They also asked if you'd consider a meeting to amicably resolve things. Amicably, I repeated, smiling. That's lawyer speak for we're desperate and can't afford the lawsuit. He looked like he wanted to vanish. So should I tell them? Tell them I'll meet, I said. His eyes widened. But not at their office. They can come here. I like home field advantage. He nodded nervously and left. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Private number. I answered. Mason. Richard's voice, gravelly, tired, humbled. 3 words I never thought I'd use about that man. We appreciate you agreeing to talk. I didn't agree to talk, I said. I agreed to watch you squirm in person. There's a difference. He sighed. You've made your point. We made mistakes. Plural, I said. Lots of them. Some in PowerPoint. I'm not here to fight, he said. We're offering a buyout. 50% ownership of Iron Core in exchange for merging under the Bright Line umbrella. You'd have full operational control. I nearly spit out my coffee. So you want me to take the company you killed, strap it to mine, and call it teamwork? Mason. Richard, I interrupted. Do you hear yourself? Bright Line isn't an umbrella. It's a burned down tent. He went quiet. Then, you won't last without a larger infrastructure. I laughed. You said the same thing about the internet in 2003, didn't you? Silence. Then the line clicked dead. He'd hung up, probably realizing that I wasn't coming back. Not for any price. By noon, the internet had decided Bright Line was officially cancelled. Employees were posting their resignation letters on LinkedIn like war trophies. One guy captioned his post, leaving the Titanic before it becomes a submarine. It had 12,000 likes. Clare called later that afternoon. Mason, I just got off a call with the board. You'll want to hear this. Let me guess, I said. They're dissolving, she said. Their investors are redirecting funds to you. I smiled. Good to know I'm a great recycling program. She chuckled. How does it feel to be the man who dethroned a family empire? I thought about it for a second. Honestly? Like I should start buying more comfortable chairs. Empires are overrated, but good lumbar support is forever. We both laughed. After hanging up, I took a walk. The city was alive, buzzing, vibrant. The air smelled like rain and coffee beans. I stopped at a newsstand. And there it was again, Iron Core Labs, the startup that outsmarted legacy giants. I bought 3 copies. Not for ego. Just for history. As I crossed the street, my phone buzzed again. A text from Amber. You won. I stared at the words for a moment, feeling nothing. No, I typed. I just stopped losing. She didn't reply. I didn't expect her to. When I got home, I poured myself another coffee. I swear my bloodstream was 70% espresso at this point, and sat down to review Iron Core's new contracts. Everything was falling into place. Offices, staff, funding, freedom. Still, something tugged at me. A strange emptiness sitting underneath the victory. For so long, my drive had been fueled by anger, by the need to prove them wrong. Now that I had what I wanted. What next? I opened the window and stared at the skyline. The same one I used to look at after miserable workdays, wondering when my break would come. It came, all right, just with a side of fire and sarcasm. My doorbell rang again. This time, I was ready for anything. I opened it to find Zara standing there, holding 2 coffees and wearing a grin big enough to power a small city. "Thought you'd need caffeine for whatever world domination plan you're working on," she said, handing me one. "Bless you," I said. "You're the only person who understands me." She looked around the apartment, cables, laptops, a whiteboard full of scribbles. "So this is Iron Core HQ, huh? Smells like ambition and poor sleep hygiene." I smirked. "We're going for a minimalist startup vibe. You know, small space, big dreams, no unpaid interns." She laughed. "Well, consider me your first hire. But I want benefits and coffee that isn't reheated sadness." "Deal," I said. We clinked our cups together like champagne. For the next hour, we sat side by side brainstorming logos, taglines, and ideas. She had that same spark I used to have before Bright Line beat it out of me. Pure creativity, unfiltered optimism. It reminded me why I started this in the first place. Halfway through, she looked at me and said, "You know what's crazy? You could have walked away quietly, found another job, but instead you built something better." "Yeah," I said. Because I realized something. Revenge fades. But legacy sticks. She smiled. "You think they'll ever recover? Bright Line?" I said, leaning back. "Not unless they start selling cautionary tale subscriptions." We laughed again. And for the first time, it didn't feel like laughter born from bitterness. It was real. As evening settled, Zara left with a promise to come back tomorrow. I sat alone again, but this time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. My phone buzzed one last time that night. A notification from an online news feed. Breaking, former Bright Line CEO Richard Collins resigns amid investigation. Below it, a picture of him stepping into a car, face pale, expression hollow. The man who once told me I'd never understand leadership was now learning humility in real time. I took a sip of my coffee and whispered, "Lesson complete." Then I glanced around the room, the whiteboard, the laptop, the coffee mug that said "World's Most Stolen Genius." It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about evolution. About taking everything they tried to use against me and turning it into momentum. 48 hours earlier, I'd been a ghost haunting their failure. Now I was the future they couldn't buy back. And damn, it felt good to be alive. When I finally shut down for the night, I walked out onto the balcony. The city hummed below, indifferent, but full of possibility. Somewhere down there, new people were making the same mistakes, trusting the wrong bosses, letting the wrong people take credit. But somewhere else, a few were learning the same lesson I had. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out who you are without them. I raised my mug to the skyline. "To the ones who doubted me," I said softly. "You built the fire. I built the forge." And as the night breeze hit my face, carrying the sound of distant traffic and possibility, I smiled. Not the bitter smile of a man getting even. But the calm, steady grin of someone who finally won by walking away. Because in the end, revenge wasn't in wrecking their company. It was in building mine. One sarcastic smile at a time.